Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hello, everyone. Good midway through the week. It is a Wednesday. Hope everyone's doing well so far. As many of you are just now kicking off the day, those of you that are even awake at this point. A couple days away from Friday, we'll, of course, kick things off at Scramblers, a Friday road show. Being at Scramblers every Friday from 6A to 9A, and we'd love for you to come out and join us. Ozarks Elder Law, so often, Lori Rook of Ozarks Elder Law joins us out there, and one of the themes that we've really been focusing on is nursing homes. They do so much, of course, medical power of attorney, making sure that your property, your estate, your farmland is protected for your family. When you pass, the government doesn't come in, but there are those nursing home moments, those decisions that have to be made, and paying for it. You see stories every once in a while about people who decide that they're going to, they hit a certain age and they're going to live on a cruise ship the rest of their life because it's cheaper than living in a nursing home. And there is a reality to that. Now, that's obviously not an option for most people. You're not probably going to go to Galveston or some other port and put grandma or mom or dad on a cruise ship and say, see you in a year. The nursing home is the obvious option for so many people when they need that assisted living. 5 ways that can be paid for as you get closer to that time. However, one after another drop off to the point that you really have only one option or no options, and that's why you need to do it ahead of time. And where you live can make a difference as well. Your personal situation may make sense to plan to put yourself or your loved one in a home just on the other side of the border in Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas. That's all information and planning that Ozarks Elder Law can do for you. Sooner is definitely better than later. 10 area locations. You can find all of them at ozarkselderlaw.com. Free consultation as well. And you can also get that contact info at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. There has been a bit of movement, I suppose, if you will, when it comes to the Republicans in Texas trying to remedy the problem with Democrats putting a stop on democracy by leaving the state so that none of the people's work there can be done. This is in a bid to prevent redistricting because they're not in charge, and that's how Democrats operate. I think a lot of people, and hey, we're not in Texas, but it is from afar somewhat frustrating to watch this play out and to see Republicans say, well, we're going to remove them from office. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then every day it's like, okay, when is this going to happen? Are these people going to be removed from office? Is this something that can be done? If not, I think that most reasonable people believe that it should be something that you can remove a lawmaker from office if they, particularly collectively and deliberately, prevent a quorum from occurring, thereby not allowing the legislature to do anything whatsoever. Because if that is allowed, then the minority party, barring like a supermajority, and every state's going to be a bit different, but under most circumstances, the minority party could simply, anytime they want, just, haul out across the border and hang out there and just not show up, and there's no quorum. And then just, that's the answer for everything. Forget filibustering. That's too much of a hassle. It is just go into hiding. Well, if you allow that to occur, then there's going to be nothing meaningfully ever done. And arguably, probably a lot of Americans may not have a problem with that. But if we are going to have functioning government, reasonable people are going to, I believe, recognize that you can't allow the party that's not in power to take their toys and break them and go home so that the people, who chose the majority party to be in charge don't get their way. Because after all, it is about the voters. Now, the FBI has been asked, this is by request of Senator John Cornyn, along with Texas Governor Greg Abbott and law enforcement officials, to locate and arrest the Texas House Democrats who fled the state and who've gone to Illinois. Not exactly a state that I would go to if I were wanting to present some demonstration of the fine work that is done in a state where Democrats are in charge, particularly when it comes to gerrymandering, but nonetheless, that is where they have chosen to go. In a letter addressed to FBI Director Kash Patel, Cornine expressed he was writing to encourage the FBI to take any appropriate steps to aid in Texas state law enforcing the efforts to locate or arrest the House Democrats who fled the state to break quorum. Cornine added that he was asking for the FBI's help as federal resources are necessary to locate the out-of-state Democrat legislators who are potentially acting in violation of the law. Meanwhile, the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, is seeking judicial orders that would declare the Texas House Democrats, declaring that they have forfeited their offices if they flee the state and fail to appear by the Speaker's deadline. Paxton's bold move exemplifies that those Democrat lawmakers are not above the law. This is a town hall tip sheet story. On Tuesday, Paxton, that would be yesterday, announced that he would seek the judicial orders for the state Democrats who fled the state in a bid to deny Republicans a quorum and thereby prevent a redistricting effort expected to favor Republicans. In a statement, Paxton condemned the Democrats who fled the state, calling their actions a cowardly abandonment of duty and a betrayal of their constituents, accusing them of engaging in a publicity stunt, vowing to use every legal tool available to hold them accountable, including arrest and punishment, emphasizing that no lawmaker is above the law. The governor has officially filed an emergency writ of quo warranto with the Texas Supreme Court, seeking the removal of far-left Democrat State Representative Gene Wu from his office for abandoning his constitutional duties and fleeing the state in a premeditated scheme to block a GOP-led vote. According to the 70-page filing, Representative Wu, who is chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus, was the ringleader of the carefully orchestrated plan that saw dozens of Democrat lawmakers hop aboard a 76-seat private jet funded in part by Beto O'Rourke's Political Action Committee to escape to Chicago rather than perform their duty during the constitutionally mandated special legislative session. By the way, do you know that in Texas, they only meet every other year? This is part of the reason that they tend to have special sessions at a frequency that a lot of other states don't, is because unlike so many other states, Missouri being one of them, and I believe the vast majority, meet every single legislative session is every year. In Texas, it's every other year. So there are these huge chunks of time in which, they're just not meeting unless there's a special session called. The petition submitted to the state Supreme Court by Texas Governor Abbott alleges that Wu and his fellow Democrats deliberately broke quorum to sabotage redistricting reforms and kill flood relief, property tax relief, and school reform legislation, critical priorities for Texans, saying if representatives are free not to show up whenever they choose, then Texans simply do not have a representative government. In fact, they don't have a functioning government at all. This court should make clear that a legislator who does not wish to perform his duties will be stripped of them. The petition reveals that Wu not only left the state, but actively solicited donations online to help cover any fines and expenses, funding his absence with cash from liberal donors. The document accusing him further of potentially violating Texas bribery laws and state constitutions, or the state constitution, citing provisions that require forfeiture of office if an official accepts anything of value to withhold their vote. And so the argument is that the Democrats are saying, in order to withhold our vote, we need you to give us money so we can get out of the state. And so that's where they are alleging there may be a bribery situation at hand here. Now, of course, bribery is a separate scenario than simply refusing to do your job as an elected official. I don't know that when it comes to the refusing to do your job, refusing to show up for your job for the purposes of preventing government from moving forward, I don't know that there needs to be any punishment. I think that the remedy is simple. They just get removed from office. Now, obviously, if somebody is not showing up because they're ill or they have a loved one that's in the hospital. That is a much different situation. But these are individuals that clearly are not hiding why they're doing what they're doing. There's no ambiguity about this. I mean, there's no disagreement over why it is that they have fled. They're openly holding press conferences saying this is exactly why they're doing it. And again, as Abbott submitted to the Supreme Court, if we allow that to occur, then there is no functioning government whatsoever. And that just cannot be allowed to occur, because otherwise, what's the point? So that's where things stand as of now. I do want to play some Democrat audio, and it's a clown show as usual with the Democrats, who do not have the ability to restrain their emotional hysterics. And so, as usual, they go overboard. One Democrat comparing this to the Holocaust, because, of course, it's like it's the only thing that they know of that everyone agrees was really bad historically. That's it. So that's what they have to use. It's Hitler Holocaust, Hitler Holocaust, Hitler Holocaust. And so it's like a little kid that only knows one curse word, and so that's the one that they use over and over and over again. It just becomes so redundant that, fortunately, it loses its effectiveness in terms of their argument. Unfortunately, what they do is, for each and upcoming new generation, they completely dilute the horrors of the Holocaust by comparing it to something like this. And, you know, there ought to be, whether it's Trump on a national level or Paxton, or well, it could be Paxton, the Attorney General, or Abbott, the governor of Texas, should pay for a flight for every Democrat that ever compares Trump to Hitler or, gerrymandering to the Holocaust. Pay for a flight and make those people go and tour some of these concentration camps in Germany. Make these people get a real, true, in-depth recognition and education of what actually occurred in the Holocaust. And some of them are so depraved that it will make no difference to them whatsoever because they have no moral compass. But perhaps just some of them may recognize, the actual horrors of what Hitler did and the Holocaust was, and then maybe stop using that willy-nilly every time they disagree with someone or see a pretty girl in a jeans ad. Weather coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be a hot one with a high near 93. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 97.
Democrats are really, really bad at messaging. They've been bad at messaging. They used to be great at it. They just used to be stellar, but this shift occurred, and it's as if someone is just whispering in their ear the exact opposite of what they should be doing in terms of messaging, and then they do it for whatever reason, and they don't learn. They absolutely do not learn. And that is something that's good for the Republicans. I don't know, honestly, that it is good for everybody, because it would just be nice. This is one of the ideas behind freedom of speech, the understanding that our founders had, that you improve by having intelligent debate, educated debate about the best way to move forward. And when you have one side that's filled with a bunch of complete lunatics, and then only one party that's not, there's no challenge. There's no challenge. It's like having a competition between two people. Both of them really, really good, and so they're constantly improving, looking for ways to improve to beat the other, or only one is really good and the other is really, really bad, and so the one that's really, really good doesn't really ever get challenged, and so there's no need for improvement. And when you don't have that competition, we all lose out. I think it would be great to have intelligent competition. The problem is the Democrat Party is increasingly handing the reins over to a bunch of lunatics. It is clear that, we saw this with Cory Booker a couple of weeks ago, that the polling that they've done, the research that they've done is, and Democrats have openly said this, voters, that we're just, why aren't you guys fighting harder? Why aren't you fighting harder? And this is something that's come up when Democrats have done town hall meetings. They show up, then they trash on Donald Trump, and then their supporters are angry because they're like, we already know this stuff. It's almost what Republican voters go through when it comes to corruption of Democrats and the constant revelations of, oh, well, look, here's more proof, here's more evidence. And we're like, yeah, we know, but is anything going to be done about it? None of these people ever get held accountable. Well, a lot of the left-wing Democrat voters find themselves in the same position when it comes to dealing with Trump. Their elected officials really trash on Trump, but it's like, okay, but you're not doing anything about, you're not stopping him, and you need to fight. And so just on cue, to the point that it becomes so clear that Democrats are just going based off of research and polling, and they're being completely responsive on the surface. Here's some of the verbiage that they've been using regarding running away from their job in Texas.
This is a new Democratic Party. We're bringing a knife to a knife fight.
We need to get to fair rules across the nation and not have Democrats showing up with a butter knife to a gunfight.
We have shown up to a gunfight with nothing but good intentions and dull knives.
Our sleeves are rolled up, and we're ready to take this fight. We are ready to fight fire with fire.
But we're not running away. We're running into the fight.
We're asking for help. Maybe just as they did back in the days of the Alamo.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, one thing, it's just amazing how we've gone from a period of time in which, Trump's language of getting out there and fight the Republicans, they're encouraging violence, and now they're on this whole theme of bringing knives. When they bring a knife, we're going to bring a sharper knife. That's right, we're going to bring a gun to their knife fight. So clearly we're no longer concerned about utilizing language that might encourage any sort of violence. But at the same time, I believe even some Democrats recognize they are talking about fighting in the state of Illinois, a safe haven. What we all know that there's the two responses, right? It's fight or what? Flight. Right? There's two responses when there's danger, two responses when there is some sort of challenge, and it's fight or flight, and it's instinct. Like, Trump displayed that he's a fighter, not a flighter, when he was shot on stage last year, and he stood up and yelled, "Fight, fight, fight." Democrats fled. They took flight. And then when they get to a safe distance, they're over there yelling, "Yeah, we're fighting over here." No, that's not what you're doing. You've done the opposite. This is why it's a binary choice. Fight or flight. This is why it's a well-known, recognized saying that people use in terms of how it is that individual people or groups of people deal with challenges, deal with dangers and threats. They either stand up and they stay there, they bow up and they fight, or they run away. And so for the Democrats in the safety of Chicago, Illinois, standing up there talking about, well, hey, all you Democrat voters, all right, we're the new Democrat Party. That's right. We're here to really show them and really to fight. Now, would that inspire you if you were a supporter of theirs? It wouldn't me. But once again, it is the horrifically poor messaging. And it just, like, Cory Booker last week, and it just seems it's so fake. It's so clearly fake. And it's so clearly in response to what they think their voters want to hear. And here's the thing. This is the ultimate reason that it's not going to work and that it doesn't work. The Democrat voters who are saying at the town hall meetings and that are responding to these focus groups that the Democrats are paying lots of money for consultants to conduct, and they're saying we want Democrats, we want the lawmakers, we want them to fight. That's not what they actually mean. What they actually want is for them to win. And this goes for Republicans as well. Republicans, if they, we want them to get in there and fight. Well, but you want them to fight for the purpose of winning. Fighting is the first step because you can't win unless you fight. Fighting is step one. Winning is final step. And so while these Democrat lawmakers have run away and in the safety of Pritzker's fat arms, it's like a little kid that's dealing with, some enemy on the playground, and then the little kid runs to the school teacher and then, really starts hollering from the school teacher's arms at the other kid, like, "Oh, you're real tough now." So, while they're doing that and they think that they're delivering on the desires of their voters by fighting, what their voters really want is, no, for you to win. Yes, we do want you to fight, I think that their voters even aren't really making that connection. They feel as if the reason they're not winning is because their party isn't fighting. Well, their party has been fighting. I'm sorry. When you call your political opponents Hitler, when you try to bankrupt them, when you try to have them thrown off the ballot, when you try to put them in prison, when you concoct these conspiracies to fake intelligence in order to try and frame your political opposition for conspiring with a foreign country in order to rig elections, that is about as dirty, nasty, immoral, unethical fighting that you can get. So the fighting has been occurring by the Democrats. It's just they're not winning. And the reason they're not winning is because the way they're fighting and the people that they are, that on whose behalf that they are fighting so often, illegals and drug cartels and all that's not what's important to the average American. And so they can scream and cry and yell into the microphone and cuss to show, look how angry we are, all they want. But that's not really the problem. The problem is they're not winning. And that's because they're not speaking to the majority of Americans. They're responding to a select few extremists in this country that populate about 20% of this. That's about 20% of the population, that's it. And that's how they end up on so many of these issues, 80-20. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Let's see here. It's bouncing around. The Democrat, here's a Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line message. The Democrats remind me of the playground I grew up in. I know you are, but what am I? Nanny, nanny, boo-boo, you come here and say that, and I'm going to go tell mom. And, well, that, again, is I think that's their behavior, and that's why they're going to, this is just another loser for them. It is another loser because the average people of Texas and the country that is observing this, they know that this is a stunt. And the Democrats that are trying to claim that, well, they have to do this to save democracy because of gerrymandering, average people know that gerrymandering, it happens everywhere all the time. It has happened since, forever and a day. In fact, the history of it's pretty interesting. It's named after the former governor of, I think, Massachusetts, and the former vice president. With trying to remember which president he was. I'll look it up because there's actually the term gerrymandering has kind of an interesting history to it. But just to prove it's not something that Donald Trump thought up or Greg Abbott thought up and decided to implement, this has been going on for a very, very, very long time. And again, something that most Americans realize. And so this is just there's no winning on this for the Democrats, and what their voters are going to find themselves unsatisfied yet again because they're not going to win. And it's just going to be more losing, more screaming, more name calling, more cussing, and more losing.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today it's going to be a hot one with a high near 93. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 97.
If you listen to the Democrats and the media, you would think gerrymandering is a new thing. Now, every state has to redraw congressional districts every so often. Generally, it's done every 10 years because that's how often the census is done. And the drawing of the redistricting is done in response to population movement. Gerrymandering refers to doing it in a way that is done, this is the loose definition, to benefit one political party over the other. So if the political party is in charge and they are redrawing and there's an opportunity to redraw districts in a way that might be beneficial, might help out the party just a bit, then and that's done. That's referred to as gerrymandering. Now, it's named after a guy that was governor. He actually was one of the founders of the country. He was involved in the debate. This is how far back it goes. He was, part of the debates, regarding the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. He would become Madison's vice president. He was at one point, and this is where the gerrymandering term came about. He was the governor of Massachusetts, and this was before Democrat-Republican. Of course, Lincoln was the father of the Republican Party, something developed in order to outlaw slavery. I mean, he wasn't the founder of the Republican Party, but he was the first Republican elected president. But at the time, you had the Republican-Democrat Party hyphenated, and then there were the Federalists. And Jerry's, last name spelled Gerry, was very anti-Federalist, and he had grave concerns about when he got into office. He was trying to remove from the bureaucratic offices, get rid of all of the Federalist people within government that he could. And when it came to redistricting, the need to do that for the purpose of population shift, he was so concerned about the Federalist that he approved of the drawing of lines that essentially crafted new districts that would make sure that the Federalists were not in power. Okay? And as the story goes, and this seems to be pretty solid story, and a lot of times the origins of these things, there'll be 8 or 9 different versions, but this seems to, as best I know, this is the one version of it, that there were a bunch of, pro-Federalist politicians, lobbies, whatever, they're, activists, and they were in Boston at a dinner party, and somebody had drawn up, or they were doing, it was either a redrawing or sort of mocking Governor Jerry's approval of the new districts. And someone referenced the fact, laughing, I think they had all been drinking, that one of the districts looked like a salamander. And then somebody else said, no, it looks like a gerrymander instead of a salamander. And that's where the term gerrymandering came about. Now, point one, little interesting tidbit of history, but also it just goes to show this isn't something that is just recently invented by Republicans. Much like the idea that up until Donald Trump got elected president, politics, bipartisanship was everywhere. Everyone got along. There was absolutely no nastiness in politics, and that was something really we heard a lot in the first term. Democrats and a lot of journalists would wring their hands. I remember it was one of the left-wing journalists that was on air during Trump's first term saying he just didn't know what to tell his son, his young son, when Donald Trump would say a curse word, and what are Americans supposed to tell their children? Remember the ad even that I think it was the Hillary Clinton campaign ran, and it was kids looking at TV sets, and then it was audio of Donald Trump saying all of these, I think, just all of the off-color things he would say, and it was just this idea that, we just never had any sort of nastiness in politics until Donald Trump invented it. And now that's the way that they're essentially acting about gerrymandering, that he's the one who's getting all of these states to do this. He's invented this idea. Democrats, they're just responding to it. They're not just responding to it. They've been doing this forever. Proof of it is, have you ever looked at probably not, but Illinois, you want to talk about looking at gerrymandering, look at the congressional map of Illinois. Missouri, by the way, has just what I think is a completely goofy map, and this was something that we had talked about at the time, that you've got, which one? Remember was it the 4th, or one that went way up to southern Kansas City and down? It was just, we were like, what on earth? That doesn't even make any sense. And why some Republicans are saying that Missouri needs to also go back and revisit and redo theirs. This isn't anything new. Now, there's another component to this I want to share coming up, and Mark Levin was on Fox. I don't think it was his Sunday night show, but he was having a discussion with one of the hosts, Fox News Tuesday. So this was yesterday, with Brett Baer. And he touches on the fact that Back in 2020, the Census Bureau would reveal that, oopsie daisies, we really, really screwed up when it comes to counting. Now, the counting of population per state is what decides how many members of Congress each state has, thereby determining how many electoral votes for the purposes of electing president. And lo and behold, every single state that they overestimated population was a blue state. And every state that they underestimated was a red state. It's another one of those just weird oopsie-daisy accidents that had nothing to do with politics whatsoever, yet Democrats come out ahead while Republicans get the shaft. And it did make a meaningful difference in terms of what states got representation. So I want to play his audio and then give you some of the exact numbers as well from the Census Bureau themselves coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you, the Pyramid Roofing Company. If you're seeing strange bubbles or raised spots on your shingles, that's not just wear and tear, that's probably roof blistering. And left untreated, that can cause serious damage. And that's why I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Roof blistering can compromise the life of your roof, especially in the summer heat, which we are seeing plenty of right now. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections, and they will give you an honest answer and real solutions before the next storm hits, whether that be maybe you need a whole new roof or just a simple roof repair. And if you do find yourself needing a whole new roof, the Pyramid Roofing Company team offers discounts on new roof installs for our military and first responders. So if that's you, make sure to mention that to them when they come out to your home. So if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out to your home, reach out to Josh today and schedule that free roof inspection. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
The Census Bureau back in 2020 acknowledged that they made an oopsie-daisy that disproportionately benefited Democrat states and disproportionately harmed Republican states. Now, this is one of the great frustrations of being an American that's not a left-winger. Every time there's some sort of oopsie-daisy mistake, whether it is reporting by journalists or government institutions doing something that has a meaningful impact on our society, and it's just like, golly gee, it was just an error, it was a mistake. It just almost exclusively is a mistake that benefits the Democrats and that is detrimental to the Republicans. The Labor Statistic Bureau situation with those numbers that, Trump talking about the fix being in and with the numbers, the job numbers, and, the challenge back to it is, well, there's no proof of that. And it's like, at what point, it's like, you observe one side is always benefiting from the mistakes, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the numbers being massively overinflated when it was Biden prior to the election, but then once Trump wins and then the numbers start going to be under-evaluated. I mean, how many times does that have to happen before you go, okay, it's pretty apparent right now. The Census Bureau and their oopsie-daisy is no exception to this. Now, Mark Levin on Fox News Tuesday with special report Brett Baer yesterday commenting on this fact.
About the book and the specifics, been through it. It's an interesting, great read. I want to talk to you about the redistricting fight we're seeing in Texas and what Democrats are pledging in other states and how that all plays out.
Well, I don't know what else they can do. I looked at some of these states. In California, they have 43 Democrat representatives and 9 Republicans. In Illinois, they have 14 Democrats and 3 Republicans. In Maryland, they have 7 Democrats and 1 Republican. In New York, they have 19 Democrats and 7 Republicans. They've already gerrymandered their states. And even more than that, Brett, people forget in 2020, the Census Bureau confessed that it made a number of errors that cost the Republicans additional seats, up to 5 seats. Florida was supposed to get 2 more. Texas was supposed to get another one and so forth. Instead, Rhode Island held on to a seat and so forth, and they admit their error. These dark blue states have already blown out Republicans over and over and over again. I mean, this California number is stunning. 43 Democrats, 9 Republicans. You know, the population in California between the Republicans and the independents far outnumber the Democrats, and yet they control the vast majority of seats.
Now, it is important, maybe not as important as the latter point, but he notices the discrepancy in elected state or on a state level or even a national level. I think he said, 43 to 9, 43 elected Democrats to 9 Republicans. And you think, well, I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? Because California, clearly it always goes to the Democrat when it comes to presidential elections, but not by that wide of a spread. That is a massive division. That suggests about 80% of people in California are Democrat. If the districts were drawn up in a manner that was wholly representation of the people of California, right? So you'd say, well, let's say 60-40. 60% Democrat, 40% Republican. Then if the districts are drawn up to accurately reflect that, then you would have about that percentage in terms of elected officials. But that's not the way it is. Instead, you have far more Democrats than are a representation of the population as a whole versus Republicans, and that's because they draw it up that way. So Mark Levin's point there is one that has been made for some time. Democrats have been doing this far beyond anything Republicans have ever even dreamed about doing. But when it comes to this Census Bureau stuff, and the Census Bureau on the government's website, I mean, this isn't a secret. They acknowledged this some time ago. Here's a listing of the most overcounted states. Delaware by 54,000, Hawaii by 99,000, Massachusetts by 157,000, Minnesota by 216,000, New York by 695,000, Ohio by 175,000, Rhode Island 55,000. Utah is thrown in there. So you have one, I don't know, it's Mitt Romney, so it's sort of a purplish that masquerades more as red. Point being here is these overcounted states are virtually all the top 8 Democrat states. When it comes to the states that got the shaft, undercounted, Arkansas, Florida, Illinois does happen to be in there. Other than that, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas. So, again, 90%, 95% Republicans getting the shaft when it comes to the population count. And so as a result of these errors, the Census Bureau found that Florida should have had 2 additional congressional seats that they did not get. So that would be 2 more electoral votes that Florida would have in the presidential election. Texas lost out on an additional seat as well. Minnesota and Rhode Island each retained a congressional seat that they should have lost. Colorado gained a new seat in which it should have never had to begin with. So these are the real-life implications of what has been occurring, and it's very significant stuff, particularly when it comes to the presidential elections. You think about, remember leading up to the last election, and Trump supporters, of course, were hoping that would be incredible and awesome to win all the swing states, but it just, the polling wasn't showing that was going to necessarily happen, and there was a lot of discussion about it could come down to Nebraska, which has sort of a weird way of doing their electoral votes, and one of them is assigned, I think it's Nebraska, by Omaha, and then the others are distributed like the rest of us, the whole state. And anyway, point being is there were these calculations being done that it could come down to one electoral vote. And many of these presidential elections are that close. So when you are talking about the census oopsie-daisying its way into awarding blue state California an extra electoral vote by way of a congressional seat, and helping through their oopsie-daisies other blue states like Minnesota and Rhode Island retain electoral votes that they should have lost, while denying red states like Florida and Texas seats that they should have gained, that can be the difference between who wins and loses a presidential election. And it's that electoral count that is also the reason that Democrats have wanted to flood our country with illegals, and that is you get them then in states like California, and California then, while we look at it, we say, well, what difference does it make? They're a blue state anyhow, but that's more congressional seats because those people get counted in the census even if they're illegal. Trump tried to put a stop to it, but Biden did an executive order to overturn it. And then, it's why all of this presentation by the media and the Democrats that somehow Republicans are treading into new territory here and they're just souling up the democratic process is total and complete BS. The Democrats have been doing everything, every way that they possibly can in order to rig the system when it comes to drawing up districts, and Republicans are, stepping up their game, I would argue, just a little bit at the prompting of Trump, because Trump, he understands the landscape, and he understands when you are up against a political opposition or an enemy, you have to recognize how they fight, and you have to fight in turn. And that's where the Democrats and the media have a problem, because once again, this is a situation in which Democrats are no longer going unanswered. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Any of the show that you miss, of course, it is available in podcast form at KSGF.com, the app, Spotify, iTunes, probably a lot of other places as well. Another couple hours straight ahead, news in 60 seconds. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. We were talking about gerrymandering in the last segment, and there's I believe, a lot of pretty good information in there, and I recommend that you go back and listen to it if you are wanting just a little deeper knowledge as to what's going on. All you're hearing is that this is something Trump invented, and Democrats are simply trying to defend democracy. As usual, complete propaganda, complete lies. But someone had texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, well, if they ban gerrymandering, what will happen then? And this is something that Democrats are trying to revive, the federal takeover of states determining how they do their own elections. They're going to revive that attempt by using this issue. You may recall at one point Democrats, when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker, and they had it was House Resolution 1, I think, and it was to protect the vote. Well, it was a hostile takeover of the states and how they run their elections. And they are arguing that we need to bring that back and we'll ban gerrymandering. Well, the problem with that is gerrymandering is really in the eyes of the beholder. And while there are certain instances with certain patterns one can look at and be like, okay, well, clearly we see what's going on here, it may at times be deceiving. You could have legitimately, you draw up a district. You got population moving, you got to draw up new districts. And it just legitimately, you're looking at nothing but numbers, just nothing but numbers, but it benefits one party over the other. Well, the party that doesn't benefit can say, well, they drew that up in order to in order to get a couple of extra seats. But that may not have actually been the motivation. Now, again, when it happens over and over again, and it has for decades with Democrats in particular, and Republicans have done it as well, you do realize what's going on. But it's, to draw an analogy, it is, let's say you have a law that says you can't hire people based off their looks. And then you go into some clothing store or some restaurant and everyone looks like a model. Well, can you really prove that that's why they hired him? How do you prove that? And, flipping that around, you could have somebody that just, really genuinely hired the people that were best for the job, and it turns out they were all really attractive at the same time, but that wasn't the motivating factor for it. So I don't know how you could pass a law that says gerrymandering for political purposes, or however you want to define it, is illegal, but it wouldn't stop it. Because the party in power, and again with Democrats in particular, they would do it anyhow, but just claim that, no, that's not what we were doing. It's just a coincidence that it worked out that way. That's what they argue now with the gerrymandering that they do in all of the states that they have made it virtually impossible for Republicans to win anything meaningful in terms of seats to represent the state. They already claim, well, it's not gerrymandering, that's just the way it turned out. So I just don't know how you would ever make it illegal or ban it just because of the nature of what it is. I wanted to share with you, I got some updated information from the awesome people, my friends over there at Pinnaker Honda. 2026 Honda HR-V starting as low as $27,595, rates as low as 3.99%. The Honda Civic starting as low as $25,745. The Honda Pilot rates as low as 3.49%. That is happening now. And the Ridgeline, looking for a truck, rates as low as 0.99%. So that's just some of the deals they have. Others as well, including for pre-owned vehicles. And, they kind of spoiled. Oh, wait. Was Barry on last Friday?
He was.
Okay, this must be why they went ahead and gave me a heads up for the food truck this Friday at Pennegar Honda. We always love finding out what the food truck is going to be, as they every Friday Pennegar Honda have a food truck, and it's going to be Infinite Kitchen. So you can look them up and find out what offerings they have. So when you decide maybe to go check out what vehicles that you may have as your next vehicle from the good people at Pennegar Honda, you can find out what you're going to have for lunch as well. Pennegar Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be a hot one with a high near 93. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 97.
There are reports that Howard Stern's show is going to go away on Sirius XM.
Oh, really?
Yes, according to sources, they are going to give him a new contract offering, but they're saying it's essentially it's going to be the sort of contract they know he will not accept, just financially speaking. And he's 71 years old. And his show is different than it was once upon a time. You know what? I think it was in 2004. Signed a 5-year contract for $500 million.
Jeez.
$500 million. And you know that he's gotten to the point where compared to the effort and creativity that he put into his original radio show, none of that is there. I always found when he would interview celebrities, because sometimes we would listen to podcast versions of his interviews with celebrities based off the celebrity, and it seemed to me as if half the time he didn't have any clue. He'd be like, now, so because this, and they're like, no, that's not how, I mean, it like he did no prep work. He just kind of walked in, which, hey, you get $500 million for a 5-year contract. I guess you can do whatever you want to do. It'll be interesting to hear how many people on the left will try and claim that this is because of the environment created by Donald Trump.
I'm surprised they haven't already started.
Yeah, I think that this news is just like in the last 12, 24 hours. And he hasn't responded. This is one of those things, it may have originated with the Sun, the newspaper The Sun, with, sources saying. So it's very early. But this is another example of a changing environment and his show changing. He went from someone that was popular, this is just my assessment. I mean, you're going to have everybody that's an expert under the sun. But he was really seen and viewed as anti-establishment. This is why he was popular. He was a normal guy that was edgy, and he talked to normal people. He was one of the normal people. People liked him because they felt like this is my buddy. This is my guy. And part of his shtick was being against the establishment, against the upper management. Of course, those of you who have seen the movie Private Parts know a bit of the background on this. And then he went over to Sirius XM, and he, of course, he started becoming more overtly lefty, and then COVID and Trump. And he got to the point where he openly said he hated people who voted for Donald Trump. He hated people who supported Donald Trump. So here you're openly telling half of the American people who vote in the presidential election that you hate them, not just don't understand them or can't figure them out, but you hate them. And when he had Kamala Harris on, one of the conversations that they had is he said he didn't even like when she was made fun of on Saturday Night Live. She shouldn't even be made fun of because of the fact that she was going to save us from Donald Trump. This is when she had taken over that run for the presidency, and he went from a relatively young and hip average person that happened to get a radio show and push back against the establishment to a senior citizen that is, wear a mask, get off my lawn, I hate you, you're, just the most left-wing, mean, bitter curmudgeon. And who wants to listen to that? I mean, and I'm not saying that because I'm not politically on the left. But at some point, you go from a creatively driven format to a format that is just old man screaming at the TV when Donald Trump is on and saying, I hate you if you don't think the things I think. I just don't really know what or who his audience was at this point. I'm guessing people on the left. I don't know. Maybe for the purposes of listening to celebrity interviews. Like I said, we, on a couple of road trips, would pull up interviews that he did with celebrities just to hear the celebrity. But you could definitely identify his audience when he was the pre-crazy left-wing nut job Howard Stern. But what that audience is today, and I don't even know that they necessarily produce numbers or put numbers out, in terms of what the actual listenership is, but I just can't even fathom that he was making money for the company that was paying him, given the sort of money that he was being paid. So, whether this is true or not, again, this is sources saying that they are going to offer him a contract. His current one is up, I think, in September, but sources are saying it's not a contract they expect him to take. So I'm guessing it's a money thing. And, I mean, I don't even know that he really loves doing this show anymore. I think that's another part of it. He might enjoy doing it. But you know why he changed? I can tell you what, because I think this is a question that a lot of people, why he changed. Because he started hanging out with rich left-wing celebrities. Celebrities were once upon a time, this is almost like Jimmy Kimmel. Celebrities were the people that he would poke fun at. Again, this is in the very beginning. He was the average person's perspective of celebrity, that the rich, the elite, the trying to tell people how to live their lives. Well, then he became one of them. And I don't mean he became one of them simply because he started making money, but he decided to live in that world. He went from somebody that would be out on the streets at these big events with average people and having average people on his show oftentimes to make near pornographic segments on air, but these were just average people to where it all became celebrities, his friends. And then you'd hear the stories. He'd be out at restaurants hanging out with these rich left-wing celebrities, and that became his world, which is fine. But when you do that, you are going to eventually either change the way that they perceive things or they are going to change you. And very often it's a numbers thing. And if you are the one individual with a perspective that is of the average guy who understands the average guy and gal, and you begin to spend your entire life with rich left-wing celebrities that are elites, you're going to start seeing things the way that they do. And that's exactly what happened. But the response, although I don't know how much of a fan base he actually has.
Well, so I'm reading from the New York Post, and they made a mention of the listeners daily. So it says Stern's program has fluctuated from 20 million daily users to just 125,000 of late.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely not good at
Yeah,
all.
it's not good.
Wow. I would have thought it wouldn't be that bad. But again, when I think about the content he's putting out, I don't know really who the audience is for that. So I can only imagine that they are not doing anything other than similar Stephen Colbert, just hemorrhaging money. And the response of the left, I wonder if these celebrities are going to do the same thing, and some of these left-wing activists portraying it as this is what happens under a dictator, that you have, it's because he hated Donald Trump, which, of course, once again, what you'll have are people who claim that they are against these really rich people that are eating up all the resources, and that these people that make hundreds of millions of dollars should be put in jail because they're taking away from the average working person. But they will be the first ones who stand up to defend a guy that got a $500 million contract for over a 5-year period. It's because a rich white guy. What is it with you people on the left? Very difficult to figure out. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. reports that Howard Stern's show is not canceled. I keep seeing that verbiage being used, but my understanding that his contract is up, and they're going to offer him a new contract that they fully expect he will not take. And some of the numbers, apparently, according to the New York Post, are as low as 125,000 daily listeners, and this is across the entire country on SiriusXM. So clearly, if that is the case, not making the sort of money. I mean, there would be hemorrhaging money, similar to a Stephen Colbert situation. But I'm sure that there will be, as crazy as it sounds, some people on the left that will claim that this is just because of the atmosphere, the environment created by Donald Trump, and because this is, this is what happens under dictatorships when comedians make fun of, the dictator, then they go away. Actually, they would probably get executed, not be able to go live on their multi-million-dollar mansions and God knows how many other homes that they have and private jets and so forth. But, everyone's got their own version of a dictator. Someone on our stream had a comment.
Yeah, it's a long one. Ready? He fought government over free speech. He was a huge fan, and I bought his tapes for collector items. Soon as he got his wealth, he turned pro-big government, threw every tape away. At one point, his cassette tapes, Crucified by the FCC, was selling for over $1,000. He'd go to cities and throw funerals of the DJs he beat in ratings. He was a great interviewer. Good riddance. I want reparations.
The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Yeah, I used to listen to Howard Stern in the early mid-2000s. He was hilarious, but you're right. He's terrible now. I cannot stand him. You know who's going to be on talking about sort of these hosts, whether it is a Colbert or much different format, but Howard Stern, and how they really, the changing landscape of viewership, listenership, and the fact that these shows that once upon a time were all about entertainment just became something where you would tune in and hear meanness and hatredness and bashing on you or your family because of your beliefs. And it's just crazy to think that that's not a winning formula oftentimes for winning over additional listenership. You know who Jimmy Fallon is having on his show on Thursday?
Who?
Greg Gutfeld.
Oh.
Now, this is crazy for a couple of reasons, but I think it's deliberate. Greg Gutfeld, though, he gets thrown in with the other late night talk show host because, or in the context of listenership or viewership, rather. Now, Gutfeld's show is on earlier than theirs, and the format is different. It's not celebrities, and he's very political, but he's not this real one. I don't know. He's normal guy political. It's not elitist political. And he has, the comparisons have been made to Stephen Colbert, that while Colbert had like 250 members of his staff to craft that show, Greg Gutfeld has like 10 or 15 people. And the amount of money that it costs to produce a show with much more viewers than Stephen Colbert has is like a tiny, tiny percentage. And this, of course, the mainstream media ignores this fact because they don't want to highlight an example of success by someone who isn't a left-winger. And you hear all the time about the fact that, well, Colbert is the highest rated. That's not true. Gutfeld on Fox is the highest rated. Now, I do agree it is a bit different. The time it's a little bit earlier. I don't know how much of a difference that necessarily makes, but the format of it is different. Arguably, one would think it would be less watched because of the format. It doesn't have celebrities. It doesn't have, musical artists that come on and perform. They're talking about daily events, and they're normal, non-celebrity people. Now, they're well-known individuals, usually with people that are libertarian or conservative or watch Fox News. These are people that may be recognized by those individuals, but these are not mainstream people that are known because they're famous. And so if you look at what format really should have a lower viewership, it would be Gutfeld's, but his is higher. Now, so you look at Fallon, and they're kind of they're competitors in a certain capacity. It's not apples and apples, but it's not apples and oranges. It's like Granny Smith apples and Fuji apples. You know, they're very, very similar, but do have a little bit of a difference. But this is a pretty interesting thing for Fallon to have another late night talk show host come on. I think it's going to be interesting to see what they talk about. It's not going to be the normal celebrity stuff, obviously. Is it going to be what it is that works? I'm going to watch it because this is uncharted territory, and I suspect it will be one of the highest rated episodes of Jimmy Fallon. I also think that this might be deliberate on Fallon's part. I want to explain why I think that is, and it could be a very smart move also. But first, we're going to get a traffic update. Very short break. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today it's going to be a hot one with a high near 93. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 97.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty connections. She's got them, and that can be very helpful to you if you're trying to sell your home. Oftentimes somebody puts in an offer, but they had some termite damage that was discovered during the inspection, and so they want some support beams in the crawl space replaced, and you've got a sidewalk with uneven cracks in it, and that can be a potential liability, and so they want that taken care of, and a few other things. Well, who do you have do that? There are lots of people that do it out there, but who's good? Who's going to take advantage of you? Some of those jobs, you have no concept of what it costs. I need part of my driveway raised up because of uneven cracks in it. Is that going to cost me $1,000 or $10,000? I have absolutely no idea. I've never done that before. And so it can become quite stressful and worrisome. And then you find somebody that is on the cheaper end. Well, are they on the cheaper end because they don't do that good of a job? Emily Johnson knows all these people. And she knows them because this is what she does every single day. She deals with people selling homes that have to have some work done. So she has those connections, and you hear that and read that in so many of the reviews of people who had to have things done to their homes, that she not only knew the connections, but helped set some of the work up. That's just one of the huge added bonuses that you get when it comes to trying to sell your home and you use Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. On Thursday, I believe that's when the broadcast is going to occur. Jimmy Fallon is going to have on as a guest Greg Gutfeld. Now, these are in some way competitors. Greg Gutfeld is oftentimes, he is a late night talk show host. The format is different and the time is a bit different. The format of all the other shows are a couple celebrities, maybe a musical guest, maybe a sketch. You have the opening monologue where you come out. It's all very, it's this format that's pretty standard. Gutfeld he's not a person that has celebrities on to talk about their latest movie or their trip to Cannes or, that sort of stuff. They are more, sort of just average people that are oftentimes maybe some form of influencer in the political world that are known by their followers, but they're not widespread appeal people. And they sit around and they talk about some of the things that are just going on. It's like a daily event. But he gets more viewers than they do. To me, that tells me that the other hosts are doing something very wrong. That being said, Jimmy Fallon is going to have Greg Gutfeld on as a guest, which is very unconventional, given that they are to some degree competitors. And we were talking about, all right, why would he do this? What would be the idea behind it? And you had your thoughts on it, Sarah.
Well, I think that Fallon is recognizing that ratings are just incredibly low for all of the Tonight Show hosts, and he sees Gutfeld as number one, and he potentially wants to boost his ratings with that.
Someone had, and I think this is to your point, they texted in, David Letterman showed up on Johnny Carson's show and vice versa. It wasn't often, but it did happen. This person remembered that. When Jimmy Fallon first started, I remember watching his very first episode, and I believe Steve Martin was the guest. If it wasn't Steve, it was somebody very high profile, and it was uncomfortable to watch how bad Jimmy Fallon was at interviewing. It was. I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is bad." He became much more comfortable over time. And I felt that for a period of time. Now, I say this, full acknowledgement. I don't sit and evaluate from some sort of critic's eye, all of these different shows. But just as a person who would be a casual viewer that might flip through and think, oh, well, this is somebody interesting. Maybe I'll watch this for a while. Jimmy Fallon, to me, was the most like a Johnny Carson in the sense that it wasn't about him, wasn't about his thoughts. I felt, when he did interviews, was much more like Carson in the sense that it was about the person being interviewed. And he did fun, goofy stuff, entertainment. The others just became extremely and overtly left-wing and political over time. Seth Meyers has become that way. Jimmy Kimmel, obviously. Stephen Colbert, clearly that way. And it just got to the point where some of them, there's a level of eliteness and smugness. And while, Jimmy Fallon, to me, never has really fallen into that category of the smugness and eliteness, his show still sort of began to give off an air of left-wingism. He got railed on when he had Donald Trump on, when Trump was running in 2016. And you may recall he messed up Trump's hair. Trump let him do it. And Fallon was eviscerated for, quote, humanizing Donald Trump. How dare you make Donald Trump look likable? And I want to say he even, was it Norm Macdonald? There was someone that, look up if he canceled a Norm Macdonald interview. I want to say that Norm Macdonald did something that sort of fell out of line with the left-wingers, and so in response to it, his visit to the show was canceled. He said something or told a joke. Anyhow, point being is, Fallon, while I think that I think he just really truly wants to be an entertainer, but has been affected to some degree by the fact that these networks are all left-wing, that the guests are all left-wing, and so it still gives off a bit of that is a turnoff to a lot of average Americans.
They did cancel it.
Okay, what was it about?
It was over a #MeToo comment.
What was the comment? Norm Macdonald. What a gem that guy was. I mean, just one of my favorites. Norm Macdonald.
He said, happy the hashtag Me Too movement has slowed down a little bit. It used to be 100 women can't be lying, and then it became one woman can't lie, and then it became I believe all women, and then you're like, what?
Yeah, okay, so that wasn't actually a joke. That was just a straightforward a reflection of average people. So Jimmy Fallon, whether it was his decision or otherwise, canceled Norm Macdonald from an appearance on there. Clearly, in just the left-wing atmosphere. I think that Fallon recognizes that the landscape is changing, and I think that he recognizes that the formats and the left-leaning environment that he may not be as heavy in, but it still exists to some degree, is not going to last. I think he's realistic about this. I think that he is insightful enough to know it's not because of Trump. It's not because of any authoritarianism. It's just the audience doesn't want to tune in to a show to unwind at the end of the night and have politics injected into it. And so he is potentially looking to differentiate himself. Now, ironically, it's by having Greg Gutfeld on that does talk about politics, but Greg Gutfeld is not a left-winger at all. And Greg Gutfeld is someone that is, while talking about politics, viewed by many people as he's a normal guy who says what I'm thinking. He's not an elitist. He's one of me. And so a combination of what Sarah said and the person texting in, reflecting on that this is the sort of thing we're talking about it. There have been news articles about it. I'm sure that Jimmy Fallon is receiving pushback. Don't have Greg Gutfeld on because he's on Fox News and you can't humanize and legitimize Fox News. But looking to get away from alienating the normal audience and get back to a place in which everyone, for the most part, is going to feel represented and welcomed and drawing, a little bit of attention at the same time. And so that, again, I suspect is going to be probably one of the highest viewed episodes of his show, and maybe any of the others that has existed in recent memory. I know I'm looking forward to it. In fact, I mentioned it to my wife. She said, you better record it. And I said, yeah, I need to set it to record because it's going to draw me in, and I'm not one who watches Jimmy Fallon. I don't watch any of them largely because I've been asleep for hours by the time those shows air. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Trump yesterday being asked by old Ducey there at Fox News about who he thinks would be a great nominee on the Republican ticket coming up in the next presidential election, and sort of throwing the ball in Trump's court, noting that, you can put this whole thing to rest right now by sort of declaring who you think the nominee should be, and this is Trump's response.
This weekend, Secretary of State Rubio said that he thought J.D. Vance would be a great nominee. You could clear the entire Republican field right now. Do you agree that the heir apparent to MAGA is J.D. Vance?
Well, I think most likely, in all fairness, he's the vice president. I think Marco is also somebody that maybe would get together with J.D. in some form. I also think we have incredible people, some of the people on the stage right here. So it's too early, obviously, to talk about it, but certainly he's doing a great job, and he would be probably favored at this point.
Well, I think that's probably the most reasoned response. It makes sense. He's vice president right now. Yeah, that would be the case, but there is still some time, and there's a lot of other people out there. This is the abundance, frankly, of talent that the Republican Party has, which is the flip side of the Democrats, in which even people like Kamala Harris can't answer the question, who's the leader of the Democrat Party right now? This is a question that's been asked by a number of Democrats. Incidentally, it's not just Kamala Harris. Her lack of ability to answer it in a coherent way could be chalked up to the fact that, she's an idiot. But other Democrats have been asked this same question that generally are capable of articulating an answer, and they've all kind of had the same, well, there's just lots of leaders, and we're all just in this together, and sometimes it's about having lots of. No, it's not about having lots of leaders, and no, you don't have lots of leaders. This is why you can't name any of them. And you look at the Republican side right now, J.D. Vance, clearly, obviously, be a very strong candidate. Marco Rubio, another option for a strong candidate. Trump talking about that'd be a great ticket. I think Hegseth potentially could. Now, that doesn't mean that these people would win. This doesn't mean that they would even win in the primary. But I'm just talking about somebody, individuals that the Republicans have that have demonstrated strong leadership, that they are capable of carrying out their job in a successful manner. And if they decided to run, they would probably have a lot of, support behind them. Doesn't mean a majority of support, but enough to really get started. Hegseth, I think, would be on that list. Tulsi Gabbard, despite the fact that she's a former Democrat presidential candidate, it doesn't mean that she wouldn't have a lot of questions to answer, and she would have to certainly demonstrate that some of the areas, particularly domestic policy, in which she used to align with as a Bernie Sanders delegate, Bernie Sanders, that, she has changed. Trump was a Democrat once upon a time. Ronald Reagan was a Democrat once upon a time. You think about that pattern, though it's two individuals. It's like the best Republicans are those who were once upon a time Democrats. And you wonder why that is. Maybe it's because they have seen the errors of their way. They've been at the bottom, and so they recognize how bad the policies are. And I don't know, somebody that has taken made that internal decision to transition, that's not an easy thing to do. That really shows a level of dedication. If you're born and raised of a political party and you start out as an intern in a political party, and then you end up running for local office in a particular political party, and that's just who you are, I think that your appreciation for the values of that party are a little bit different than somebody who was of the opposing political party, a Ronald Reagan or a Donald Trump, and perhaps a Tulsi Gabbard. And then, it demonstrates a real self-awareness and a real understanding of the implications of both parties' policies to make that decision to switch parties. People think that that's an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do for a number of reasons, one of which is internal, because what you're doing is admitting to yourself and to the world, I've been wrong all this time. And so, as I just talk about these people out loud, and Reagan and Trump, which many people would argue are in modern history the best, most successful Republican presidents we've had, it's interesting that they both once upon a time weren't Republicans, but made the determination to be one as an adult. Maybe Tulsi Gabbard could be one of those. Point being, just naming a few individuals that are, part of Trump world right now, and there are others also that oftentimes get talked about and named. The Republican Party's biggest problem right now is, of course, Ron DeSantis, is determining which one of the winners do we want to be the winner. And you look at the Democrats, and they can't even name a single person that they think might potentially be a good person to lead them out of the wilderness. And who are the people in their political party that get the most attention? It's the Jasmine Crockett's, the Ocasio-Cortezes. Right now, the Mamdani, who is an anti-Semite that refuses to condemn the call to finish Hitler's final solution by way of global intifada. That's who their top people are right now. You see Elizabeth Warren saddling up next to Mamdani. How perfect is that? These are both individuals that lied on their college applications about their race, ethnicity, in order to try to get preferential treatment. Elizabeth Warren obviously claiming falsely that she was Native American on her college application forms, and Mamdani lied claiming he was African American, he was black. It's just so perfect seeing those two side by side, just as fake as can be. Referencing the fact that two of the greatest modern Republicans as presidents were once upon a time Democrats, and a number of you on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, note that, well, the parties were, of course, different, and both parties are different. I think that the Democrat Party is drastically different. Democrats of the Kennedy era are much more aligned with Republicans today, whereas Democrats today are just aligned with, Fidel Castro, former Soviet Union, and so they are different. But it still takes a great degree of self-awareness and real evaluation, a self-evaluation of what each party stands for. Because look at, as the parties change, the vast majority of the politicians that are with the parties change with the party. We've seen that over time. It's rare that you actually have the politicians stay pretty rooted in their belief system and don't get swayed by the party. I would argue for Republicans, the very few members of the Freedom Caucus would be a representation of those who have not moved to the left, while the vast majority of Republicans, I mean, look at the Republican Party used to be the party of less spending, right? They were the people all about balancing the budget, and well, where has that gone? Well, the Freedom Caucus members are the few who have stayed steady, and so point being that the parties do change, they evolve. The vast majority of the people within the parties do the same thing. This is why I have fears about the direction of the Democrat Party becoming even more extreme than it is. You are already watching Democrats that are assimilating to Mamdani's perspective on things. I mentioned before the break, Elizabeth Warren saddling up to the guy. This is a guy. He's for government-run grocery stores like we've seen, again, in the Soviet Union and Cuba, Venezuela, where people wait for hours upon hours, sometimes days, in order to have access to food. He wants to eliminate law enforcement, and instead, whenever there is some psychopath swinging an axe down in the subway, to send a counselor down there in order to relate to him. He refuses to condemn finishing the final solution, Hitler's global intifada, saying that, well, it's not really my job as mayor to criticize people's belief in free speech and so forth. And prior to him winning the nomination, Democrats were openly condemning him. But now that he's won, they are assimilating to his belief system. The Democrat Party is changing and evolving to become the full party of violence and anti-Semitism. And when you have someone that is of a party that stands firm or says, wow, the party has changed so much, I have to leave it, that still is a degree of self-reflection and discipline that most elected officials never bother to take. And I think that says something about them. News coming up in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Hour 3. My name is Nick Reed. Sarah Myers is here, too.
Oh, hello, that's me.
She's always here.
I am. I'm just in the corner working.
Yeah, I just always say my name because I'm all self-involved and everything. Speaking of selfish and self-involved, I think today is the day, if not today, tomorrow, that the fire pit installation, the smokeless fire pit installation occurs. So I didn't even think about this. They do the entire patio first, and then I guess they cut out the area for it instead of building around it.
Why did they do that?
I'm guessing because everything is so precise. I'm talking about Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. They've been doing my new patio. And I knew that they would be precise, but the level of precision, I just am amazed by it. And so I imagine that, though I could ask them this today, it probably has something to do with that, and that in getting all of the pavers and the stones and everything precisely fit tight so that everything is perfect, you have a greater degree of certainty in doing that, in doing all that first, and then within it cutting out the place to put in or to build the fire pit in it, as opposed to trying to build around it.
Gotcha.
Okay. But so these guys, I've mentioned that Shirley, my neighbor, who's 90 something years old, I don't know, she's over there, like I see her go over there every day. And I had texted Daniel, and I was like, hey, I kind of forgot to mention my neighbor Shirley. She's really great. She's harmless, but, I've noticed she's been over there. He's like, oh, yeah, no. And Daniel said that he talked with her, too, and she's great. So last night, we go out back as they're wrapping up for the day and just sort of chatting about where to put the fire pit. And one of them said, well, I noticed Shirley she didn't come over today. And I kind of laughed, and I was like, well, I'm a little disappointed because I know that she's been over here making sure the show's running smoothly. And then I realized he was genuinely concerned because he says, well, no, she comes over every day for about 5 minutes. And he goes, but she has not come over today. He said, so I was just a little worried. And I was like, oh, here I was joking about it, but he was genuinely concerned because he hadn't, because she comes over every day and visits with him, and she hadn't done it. And I know.
Well, did you check on her?
No, I didn't check.
Wow.
I probably should have, because she once accidentally locked herself in the shed out back. And that was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And she did tell me the next day that if ever we haven't seen her for several days and we notice a horrible smell somewhere around the backyard, that it's probably her in the shed.
Did she really say that?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
She did. It was probably 7 years ago, somewhere around there. And I forget how it was she got out. I think she had, she didn't have a way, like a mechanism. Usually those sheds will have a way for you to open it from the inside. I think she had one installed after that.
Worried about Shirley.
Well, now I am too.
You need to send the girl child over there.
Yeah, I think I should. Boy, if something bad happened, I'm going to feel real bad now that I talked about it and joked about it and everything. But back to the original point. The crew is just so genuinely. I don't know if you've ever had projects done at your house before, and so often they just come, they go, they don't want to mess with you. They're not friendly, and these people are just like people that you've known forever in their family. And I just cannot recommend the craftsmanship, the precision, the quality of product, and just how fantastic they are to work with. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. You can find them at hunterhardscapes.com. You can even get a ballpark quote figure on the work that you're wanting to get done, and you can see some of the previous work that they have done as well, before and after pics. All right, so traffic coming up here in just a moment. Also, what to expect weather as we've kind of gotten back to some of the warmer temperatures. First, the news.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be a hot one with a high near 93. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Friday, once again sunny and hot with a high near 97.
There's a piece in the Federalist, and we'll post it under must-read headlines regarding Trump and IVF, and it's titled "Backpedaling on Taxpayer-Funded IVF Would Be a Trump White House Win, Not a, quote, L," in other words, loss. And it's about the word out there now that the Trump administration is backing away from what at one point Trump had suggested, and that was maybe the government would mandate insurance companies to cover IVF treatment. Now, the Federalist story, that, you know, is something you can read on your own. That's not what I wanted to talk about. But just this is such a this issue is a great example of how even recent history on an issue gets completely erased and context gets swallowed up into a complete black hole. Much of this is a media that is willing and feels virtuous misleading the recipients of its news coverage when it comes to Donald Trump. Some of it is just the way that we, I think, so rapidly forget things that happen. We utilize the internet to just sort of rapidly fire info in our minds that we just dump out almost immediately as we scroll to something else. And so I think just a combination of things make us very susceptible to forgetting what happened yesterday. And I saw there was one of those podcast comedians that ended up kind of liking Trump, but now he's railed against Trump because Trump is backing away from, according to some of these reports, forcing insurance companies to cover IVF. Now, let's remember, the history of all this. Donald Trump is someone that the media and the left, during the last campaign, were claiming was going to, ban IVF treatment in this country. Remember that? They're going to ban it. Make it illegal. That's why Tim Walz claimed that, at one point he was claiming that his daughter was born IVF, which turned out to be one of his other lies because, golly gee whiz, he's just kind of a kooky guy who makes up stories all the time. And one of those lies was that his daughter was born only because of IVF. And the reason he was telling that story, as a lot of other celebrities were out there talking about the importance of it, is because Donald Trump was going to ban it. Going to ban it. I think Jennifer Aniston even was posting information. That one stands out because she generally doesn't get herself, it seems anyhow, headlines from engaging in politics. But I want to say if it wasn't Aniston, it was somebody else that generally seems to stay out of this stuff that even started participating in the public conversation because of the narrative that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were going to ban it, make it absolutely illegal. News outlets had all these stories where they talked with these mothers who thank God for IVF. It was the only way we were able to have a child. And the miracle, all of a sudden families, all of a sudden a traditional mom and dad and child, according to the media and left-wingers, was the greatest miracle ever that could occur. And we should all embrace it. And it was all in the context of Donald Trump is going to make it impossible and even illegal for mothers who would do anything for a child of their own by banning and making it illegal for IVF. Now, that was the origins of IVF in the political realm, just roughly a year ago. And, of course, Trump and J.D. Vance, if it ever came up, they're like, no, we're not going to do that. Then Trump, it was after he got elected, and I don't recall the context or the setting, or if it was even Trump himself or reports that, Trump was considering forcing insurance companies to provide or to cover for IVF treatment, which, of course, is the complete opposite of the way that he was portrayed. Now, at the time, and I stick with this, one of the problems that we have in this country is government mandating insurance companies cover certain things. Government should not do that. I know that a lot of people feel that government should dictate to private industry what they do and don't do, and that when it comes to insurance companies, they should just sort of pick these different things that are really popular and in the headlines and say we're going to force insurance companies to do it. I'm opposed to that. But nonetheless, there was word that was something that Trump administration was going to do. Well, now the Washington Post is reporting that the White House is allegedly, quote, backing away from proposals discussed internally to mandate IVF coverage for roughly 50 million people on the Obamacare exchanges. White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson told the Washington Post that Trump, quote, pledged to expand access to fertility treatments for Americans who are struggling to start families and is still committed, like none before it, to using its authority to deliver on the pledge. As of now, however, the goal reportedly doesn't include taxpayer-funded IVF. The Washington Post chief economics reporter Jeff Stein painted the decision as another apparent loss from this administration for the conservative natalist. In reality, the Trump White House's decision to ditch his plan for taxpayer-funded IVF is more on par with his professed platform than ever before, committing tax dollars to the child commodifying assisted reproductive technology such as IVF goes against pro-life, pro-family, pro-make America healthy again principle Trump supported. It goes into, again, sort of their argument about this is actually the right thing to do. Now, and the way that this reads, the suggestion or proposal wasn't forcing insurance companies to do it, but taxpayers to pay for it, which still I'm not the supporter of. But here's the point. Trump is someone that they claimed was going to make it totally illegal. he gets elected. Then there are suggestions that maybe taxpayers will pay for it, and there are now, sources saying that, well, that may not be what happens. But what we're still talking about a reality in which there's absolutely no discussion of banning it whatsoever. But Trump is still now the bad guy. You see how all of this, the recent history and the way all this plays out, it gets forgotten. That we went from Trump is a bad guy because he's going to make it illegal to Trump is a bad guy because he may now not force taxpayers to pay for it. And aside from, and there is a very significant and important discussion that the Federalist is carrying on here about, the inconsistencies with the pro-life movement and so forth when it comes to IVF. It's, to me, a great illustration as to how it is that the media manages to really manipulate people's assessment of any particular issue and situation, and how they can go from, well, the reason that Trump is bad is because he's going to ban this, which wasn't true, to now painting him as bad because he may not force taxpayers to pay for it. Which, of course, means, if that is the case, the situation regarding IVF in this country is going to be the exact same way that it was when he was running last time around, which that way was the way that people on the left were claiming that it should stay. That it's wonderful the way it is. This is incredible. This is fantastic. All of these wonderful children. But now if taxpayer dollars aren't paying for it, the situation at hand is horrible and terrible. This is, to me, the media. I'm overly simplistic. I'm just a simple guy. If somebody is paid money to provide me with information about a particular situation, the gauge of their success is once I've consumed the information they provide me, how fully informed I am about the entire situation and scenario. And I suspect that most people who would read these Washington Post stories and so forth, they'll probably walk away thinking that taxpayers have paid for it this whole time and all of a sudden Trump's going to take it away, and forget the fact that this is a guy that they once lied about, claiming he was just going to make it illegal altogether. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. A lot of folks that are going to be responsible for your home loans may not be people you actually even meet. You know, oh, it's so easy, go online. Or, well, went to my traditional big bank and they told me just to get online and do it there. The characters you get, the personal experience, you get the team right here in Springfield, and it can go far beyond just the home loan process that you benefit from, particularly when it comes to issues regarding your credit. I mean, aside from being responsible for my home loan in the home that we live in, I learned so much about credit and how it is that you can handle and manipulate, if you will, your credit to benefit you, and that is something that has paid off so tremendously beyond the home loan. But also, they love to work with and connect with realtors, which odds are you're going to have one. Of course, they recommend so often and talk about working with Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. But Alex Carricker recently posted this, just yesterday, in fact, on his social media, Facebook, Realtor Tip of the Day, how to save your clients time, money, and mild annoyance. And this would be for you as well. Did you know that for most government loans, you have to have splash blocks or downspout extenders? Apparently, the government doesn't like it when rainwater throws a pool party around the foundation. It's actually one of the most common subject to items that the appraiser calls out, and if it's missing, that means a final inspection, which costs your client up to $250, a possible delay on that sweet clear to close notification, a collective sigh from everyone involved. Here's the kicker. Home Depot sells splash blockers for under $6 each. $6. So if you have the trunk space, toss a couple in for your listing or buyer. At closing, you can either let them keep them or upgrade to something fancier. You look like a hero. They'll save money, and we don't have to have the appraiser go back out to the house, which everyone just loves. Sometimes the difference between smooth closing, and slightly delayed chaos is just $12 worth of plastic. Now, that obviously is, advice that anyone looking to sell their home, perhaps because you're going to buy a new one, can utilize in order to save a lot of time and money. Point being is that is the sort of above and beyond you get when it comes to home loans with iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today it'll be a hot one with a high near 93. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 97.
Did you see Indiana is opening their own version of Alligator Alcatraz?
No.
Yes, it is called the Speedway Slammer.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Yes, the Speedway Slammer will be located at this is Indiana, but it's going to be located, I guess there's a Miami in Indiana. It's between Indianapolis and Fort Wayne, unless it's pronounced Miami, because there's a Miami, Oklahoma. Yeah. But it's located in between the Miami Correctional Center and Miami County, which is between Indianapolis, Fort Wayne. The name, a nod to Indiana's racing culture, such as the annual Indianapolis 500, saying, quote, "We are proud to work with President Trump and Secretary Noem as they remove the worst of the worst with this innovative partnership." This from Indiana Governor Mike Brown. Indiana is taking a comprehensive and collaborative approach to combating illegal immigration and will continue to lead the way among states. Oh, Speedway Slammer. And I will admit, I immediately thought, what would be a great name for Missouri? And I just could not come up with one.
Yeah.
Like every state, every red state, anyhow. I mean, blue states are doing what they can to help illegals, including human traffickers and rapists of women, to avoid and evade law enforcement while celebrating them as great would-be citizens of our country, while Republicans are doing what they can in order to protect people in this country legally, that being citizens and legal immigrants, from some of the most horrific criminals. And you've got Alligator Alcatraz as one of these facilities in order to prep them for transportation out of our country into their own. And now in Indiana, the Speedway Slammer. But I just couldn't think of any. I mean, show me something was what I was thinking. I mean, I guess you could have the Missouri, but I just couldn't think of anything good. I'm going to have to work on it. I spent a lot of time trying to think of show me something.
The Show Me State Slammer?
Well, but I don't want to call
like,
well, yeah, and it's kind of using their terminology. I don't know. And then I guess you could have Missouri. I don't know what else you would have at the beginning of it other than show me or Missouri. So it's got to, obviously play nicely off the ear because Alligator Alcatraz and Speedway Slammer, they have a nice little note on the ear. It just sounds nice. It sounds pleasant. And so, I don't know, we'll have to come up with something. Wouldn't that be cool to get something like that going?
Now I'm going to be over here thinking about this the entire time. Maybe they can do like a play on words with like Lake of the Ozarks or something.
So if it was like specifically, yeah, or like you could have it around a landmark like Table Rock, so it could be the Table Rock something. All right, we're going to really have to work on this. I'm sure many of you, and feel free, of course, you can text in your ideas. I don't even have to say that because anytime we mention something like this, we get all sorts of really great ones. And then we'll forward them on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll send them on. When's what? Did somebody come up with one already?
The Missouri Misfit Manor.
Okay, that's a good start. Good start. This story mentions Kristi Noem. And have you noticed that it has almost become commonplace that she's called, Borders Are Barbie? Isn't that what they call her?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's the left that have given her this name. Borders Are Barbie. Or Border Security Barbie. It's something like that. I mean, the term Barbie is used constantly, and it's used against her in a disparaging way. Now, what happened to people on the left crying sexism anytime there would be any reference to a woman who is in a job that is a profession and demeaning her by slapping some sort of label on her like Barbie? This is, again, the complete, total, utter, not just hypocrisy of the left, but the fact that they don't care about women. They don't care about the dignity of women. They don't care about misogyny against women. Women, like anyone else, not really special, other than can we use them as a tool or a weapon? Or, when not, how do we demean them? And so here they have taken this strong, independent woman who isn't known because of who she was married to. Most people probably don't even know the name of her husband, know anything about her, as opposed to people like Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama and some of the most high-profile female Democrats who are known because of the men that they married. And they slap a label on her that is meant to be demeaning of her as a female. But it's perfectly legit, right? Because it's not about supporting women. It's not about demeaning women. It's about how do we use women in a manner that fulfills our obligation of power. And in this particular case, it is demeaning this woman because she's not on their side. Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line 447 KSGF. I want to play some audio coming up. The president of the Teamsters Union sat down and had a conversation on a podcast, the Free Press podcast, and talked about, in his assessment, why it is that Democrats are no longer the party of the working person. And also the audacity of Kamala Harris telling the Teamsters, you better get on board with my campaign. What a laughable thing. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. If your AC is struggling to keep up with the summer heat, I recommend that you reach out to Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. The Foreman team specializes in fast, reliable AC service repairs, no upsells, no gimmicks. They just honest work done right the first time. Whether your system is blowing warm air or maybe it's making strange noises or it's just not keeping your home cool, they will get you back to comfort in no time. Plus, they handle residential and commercial systems. The Foreman team, they offer fair pricing and they do a great job working with your schedule and getting to your unit as soon as possible so you don't have to wait around in a hot, muggy house. So don't wait until your system just quits completely. Get ahead of the problem and call Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air today. You can reach out to Russell and his team to schedule that appointment, and you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
All right, well, you all delivered far beyond what I expected in terms of volume.
We kind of sucked. But...
Yeah, we did. You guys. So we were talking about the fact that, of course, there is Alligator Alcatraz. Indiana has announced that they are going to have a detention center called the
Speedway Slammer?
Yeah, Speedway Slammer. And so I thought, well, Missouri, but I just couldn't think of anything. You guys have just flooded us with a lot of really great ideas. You want to start? You want to read through them?
Yes, and mine have slogans. The ones that I have over here.
Okay, where are yours from?
From YouTube.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so I have the Boot Hill Brig. You don't want to get sent down south, which I like.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do like the slogan.
Yeah. And then the Gateway Guardhouse. No escape, not even through the arch.
Okay.
I know.
All right.
Pretty good.
All right, now I'm going to try to hit some of these. Let's see. Show me green card. Missouri mule barn. Show me deportation. Hillbilly hoosgow what is hoosgow? Is that slang for a jail?
I don't know.
I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with that term. Hillbilly HOOSEGOW. That's okay. I've not heard that before. So that's a pretty good one. Hillbilly hoosgow.
Cowboy term for jail, apparently.
All right. Jeff Jail. I guess that would be Jeff City. Show me Shackle Hut. Missouri or Mo Slams. Gateway Gulag. Cardinal Cages. Misery Cage. Show me Safety. Table Rock Alcatraz, since Alcatraz was called the Rock. Just build. Let's see. What is this? Let's see. Misery in Missouri. The Missouri Penitentiary. Gotta reach out on some of these here. Well, why would you could say Missouri Penitentiary, or Missouri Penitentiary? What? Yeah. Okay. All right. Show me Stockade. Ice Barbie. That's what it was. I was trying to think of Kristi Noem and how the left seems to have no problem demeaning her for being a woman by giving her the label Barbie consistently. Ozarks Outlock. Oh my, goodness, there's a lot. Razorback Rock, Buzzard Bluff Pin, Catfish Cannon Penitentiary, Hog Hollow Hold, Timberwolf Tower. Those are all coming from the same person. Yeah, there's quite a few there. Kansas City Clink, the Missouri or the Show Me Shawshank. That's a pretty good one.
I like that one.
You could put it in Mexico, Missouri. A slogan could be "Being deported, come home to Mexico."
Oh,
yeah, that was Kit Bond hometown there. The Big Mo House, a play on Mizzou's Big Mo Drum. Hickok Hotel. Show me Shutdown. The Gateway Getmo. Did we have that earlier?
No, we had the Gateway Gulag.
Yeah, Gateway Getmo. That's not too bad. Both of those are really good. Let's see. Convict Cave, since we are so many caves. Show me the Lockup. Let's see. How about the Missouri Motel? Because you are only staying a little while. That's a good one. That's from Bill in Pittsburgh. Lake of the Locked Up.
Ooh, okay.
Long timers. The Hillbilly Cooler. Collar General. Potosi Pokey. Okay. Yeah, so I said Gateway Getmo.
Here we go. The Truman Tank. Give 'em jail, Harry.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, boy, there's a few good ones here. Show Me Shawshank is good. I like Gateway or the Gateway Getmo. That's another good one. So yeah, I think we got some definite possibilities.
So
here.
we should just compile these all in the list and send them to the governor, and then he can pick.
Gateway Gulag, I mentioned that. I liked it too. Oh, Show Me Deportation. Missouri Mule Barn. Sorry if I mentioned some of these. I was kind of when I click on them, it shows that I read them, and some of them I didn't click on. I just read them, and so that's why I might be Camp.
You can't say that one.
Well, I can say the letters. Camp GTFO. Well, you could call it Camp Getfo.
Mm-hmm.
Camp
Okay.
Getfo. Yeah,
All right.
I kind of, it's like Getmo a little bit. Camp Getfo. Yeah, okay, yeah. I don't, Bobcat Bing. All right. So those are the suggestions that we've got right now. And if you just joined us, we're talking about the fact that Indiana has announced that it is going to have their own version of Alligator Alcatraz called the Speedway Slammer. And so I just think this would be a great trend for red states to come up with clever names of these holding facilities for people that are awaiting deportation. All right, now I want to transition over here. I want to play some audio. This is the Teamsters Union president sat down for a podcast, and he is discussing how it is that Democrats lost the working person. And the transition really has occurred. It's just a matter of awareness and recognition that the Democrat Party is not the working man's party anymore. It is the Republican Party. And it's a combination of Donald Trump and the Democrats. Donald Trump has really successfully focused and I think articulated and explained why it is that under him, Republican policies are more beneficial for working people, but not only explained them and articulated them, but demonstrated it by putting these policies into place, many of which were during his first term. And then so many of those same people felt the policies of the Democrats, and they got a real great comparison, a real nice side-by-side. And so when, after the side-by-side, there was, okay, who do you want here? Clearly, Donald Trump was the victor, specifically amongst working people. So that transition it has occurred. And I think it would take a real screw up on the Republicans and a real coming to Jesus turnaround by the Democrats in order to alter that transition. Now, when it comes to the union's perspective as to how it is the Democrats lost them, here is the president of the Teamsters Union.
My thing is, I always look at it from a simple perspective. You're paying me to do something, or if you're electing me to do something, I work for you, okay? Where the Democrats lost, and I think you made a good point earlier, they fell in love with their captors. They fell in love with big money. They fell in love with big tech, and they forgot who they truly are representing, working people. You know why? Because they're not in their communities, not in their neighborhoods. You know, they're not talking to the people that they're paid to represent. And when you talk to people one-on-one, look, I can sit in my office all day, every day, and try and solve problems over the phone. And I'm not going to get a true testimonial of what is actually going on. And I told you earlier, like I'm in workplaces, my partner and I, we're in workplaces, 3 days, 3 different states per week. And we're not talking to leaders or anybody else. We're going on the shop floors, talking to rank and file members. That's where you get the best gauge. And that discipline should hold true. And I think the Democrats forgot that they need to be in their communities where they represent, talking to people, finding out and identifying the issues that truly matter.
And I'm going to play a second bit of audio here where he goes into a little bit of what Democrats instead were focusing on. And I recognize that a lot of Democrats in their minds, well, we do go talk to, we talk to voters, but this is the way that Democrats talk to voters. Like they go to the voter and what's important to you? And, okay, okay, now let me tell you why you should vote for me. That's how it works. And then the reason for voting for me as a Democrat is because Donald Trump is evil. Donald Trump is Hitler. Donald Trump is going to cause trans kids to kill themselves. Donald Trump is going to put transgenders in concentration camps. Donald Trump is going to have homosexuals executed. I mean, all of these, and every one of these, what normally would be an absurd example I've just given, has actually been said by Democrats during the 2024 election. I mean, these are things that they were out there saying. And so they might listen to the workers, but then they turn around and tell the workers, here's why you need to vote for us. And if you don't, you're a racist. If you don't, you're a Nazi. That's not listening. The Teamsters Union president further noting what it was that Democrats seemed to focus on.
This whole election for the Democrats was based on social justice issues, right? Our members, the Teamsters, and I can speak for the Teamsters, we solve a lot of those social justice issues by negotiating the strongest contracts, by fighting for rights, fighting for diversity, fighting for, equality in the workplace. And it seemed like this narrative of the social justice issues, it didn't identify with our members. Our members identify with more money in their pockets, more job protection, better pensions.
Core issues.
And a path from the start of your job into a career, into retirement. I mean, it's simple block and tackling, and that's not what our members wanted to hear.
Again, this is where Trump resonated. These are things Trump talked about. And the 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration, Democrats controlling things, it gave people and it gave workers real life opportunity to have a side-by-side comparison. we so easily overlook that aspect of this. Having that so often when somebody is running against someone else, it is the someone else that you don't really know what they're going to be like. You just know what they tell you they're going to do. That's almost what every presidential campaign is about. It's either two people that have never been president or one who is running for re-election and one who says, oh, all these bad, well, I can just do it better. But much like the Coke Pepsi challenge, that was a real popular thing. That was a TV ad campaign back in the 80s where they would have Coke and Pepsi that were, it was a blind taste test. And then they would have people one, and then right then you try the other. And so in the moment, you have the opportunity to see which one that you like the best. And Americans had this incredible opportunity that in our era we've never had before, and that was two people running for the president. And Kamala Harris, it might as well have been Joe Biden. I mean, she openly said there wasn't a thing she could think of she'd do anything differently. So Americans really had the opportunity, if they had in their adult life been alive and lived in the world over the 8 years, to have a side-by-side comparison. And for people who have like these core concerns, these beliefs and worries and concerns of the things that actually affect them in a meaningful way, the Democrats had no interest whatsoever in talking about that stuff. Not to mention, they had the uphill battle of the average working person recognizing that life got a heck of a lot more difficult under the Biden policies than they were under the Trump policies. And then to my point, that Democrats only, when they say, oh, we would listen to the voters, and they still do this. Oh, we listen. We've got to listen to figure out what they want. But then all they do is wait their turn to turn around and tell the voter, now you need to support us. You have to support us. This is what the Teamsters Union president had to say regarding Kamala Harris's visit with the Teamsters during the election.
Went to, I don't know if it was an Emily's List event the day before our general executive board, and Vice President Harris was there. And so they do a photo op line. So Joan goes in the line and Joan says, I'm Joan Corey. I'm a vice president with the Teamsters Union. And she pointed her finger at Joan and said, Teamsters better get on board. And so Joan says, excuse me? Yeah, Teamsters better get on board. I don't know why you haven't endorsed me yet. So she comes back and she tells me this, and I'm like, the nerve.
You're right. Can you imagine? And of all people, Kamala Harris? Part of what I think is so funny about that is, in my mind, she probably had a little bit of wine and thought, these are tough people. They really respect toughness. So I'm just going to go in and point my finger in their chest, say, you better get on board, and they're going to be real impressed by me. Didn't quite turn out that way. All right, I hope everyone had a good time.
I did.
Oh, good. That's
Let's
what
do
matters.
it all again tomorrow.
Let's do it again tomorrow at 6 a.m. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.